Welcome back to another podcast for Wine and Wine Real Estate Uncorked. We're the Virgilio team. We're going to cover a few hot topics to keep our buyers and sellers out of hot water today. That would be lending. We're going to talk about wire fraud and some contractual obligations that people need to look out for, both buyers and sellers.
And I'm
Quincy's
ready.
got his sailboat shirt on. He's here to party, and
Let's
we're going to
do
go
this.
right in.
Well, hopefully everyone's following us on all those social media things that we do. So that's good that we got a response for Pitfalls. And I know that we're going to talk about a lot of different stories about things that people have gone through in our thousands of transactions that we've had over the years, and different things that have come up that have either impacted a deal or caused the deal to be delayed, and or things we should know going into the deal.
Right.
One of my favorite stories, not my favorite story, but one of my stories with a client who we were talking to them about their financing. They had gone to a lender, of course, and I jokingly say to people, now that you're looking for a home, don't go buy a helicopter or an airplane or a boat. Well, they didn't.
What did they buy?
They bought a car.
Oh, boy.
And so that immediately changed their debt ratios on their loan. The lender's going through the roof saying, wait, you have a $585 payment on a car now that we did not include in your debt ratios, and it puts your debt ratios out of whack. Your loan is no longer going to work. We had to restructure things. And, of course, it all worked out. They wanted to come in with a little more money down that lowered their loan amount to be able to keep them in the debt ratios. But it was so close that, you just don't think that that's going to affect anything. And sure enough, it did. We got him a house, but it was stressful. And our job is to keep the stress out of the situation.
Well, I think that's like a lot of today's stories is that we get it done.
Yeah.
But the idea going in is to be as prepared as possible, right?
Absolutely.
And so we always try to do risk management and prepare our clients for things that could potentially happen. However, when things or people don't listen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone has their own ideas. I mean, it's the age of the internet. Everyone goes online and learns all kinds of things, and everyone becomes an expert until it's put into application.
Right.
And then when you're in application, where we live is an application, things change.
Right.
So there's lots of things to be thinking about. I know that you have a story with the schools.
Yeah, absolutely. So, since we're on the buyer side of the world here, I know when I first got into the business, I didn't know nearly the amount of information that I know now, having gotten licensed when I was 18 years old. But one of my very first deals, the home, I was representing the buyer, the house was literally backed up to the school. Mm-hmm. We would assume that the elementary school would be theirs.
Didn't it have a gate to the school, too?
It pretty much did. I mean, I'm sure the kids hopped the fence if they could, or there should have been a gate built. We get into contract, and guess what?
Not the school.
It is not the school.
So what do we do there?
So now, since that, of course, the buyers were very upset.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it...
I mean, you're disappointed. That's not going to be your school. You live right there in a yard,
right? And they specifically picked that house with the intent of their children going to school there. Right. So they didn't have kids yet, so we were able to work through that one. Yeah. But the idea is now to make sure that they call the district to find out what the current boundaries are, also what the intent is for the next however long the projection is for those boundaries, because those change.
Yeah, and you could be right in that district and be next to that school, and it's not your school.
Correct.
Assumptions are made, and you know what they say about assumptions.
Yeah.
So, of course, verifying that information is always so important, and that, too, would avoid stress in those situations.
Absolutely.
Now, the other idea of that was, we could sell their house and get them another one by the school they want, right?
Right. Exactly. Well, they had time. They didn't have kids either, so by that time, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
So let's jump in, since we're still on the buyer track.
Sure.
A big one that's happening right now, unfortunately, which is just absolutely terrible,
horrible.
is buyers' wire fraud.
Wire fraud.
So the big thing, the business email compromise.
Yes. And that was an issue, and we warned our buyers and our sellers too, because sellers give instruction as to where their funds are going to be wired to, and then they get a phishing email, business
email compromise.
It says, hey, here's your information where to send your wire, and it gets sent to somebody. The money's never recovered.
Yeah, they're sending the lookalike domains and making it seem like it's part of the title company or part of the realtor's office.
Right.
Changing the instructions. So specifically on this transaction, we were representing the seller.
Right, yeah.
The buyer got an email before their sign off.
2 weeks before.
2 weeks before their final close or their sign off for their loan documents, requesting the funds to close to be sent to a different account that was sent that was their deposit.
Right.
So that changed and gave a very good description on why it was to be different.
And a phone call. They got the phone call.
From title.
We always tell our clients that you're going to get a phone call from a title officer or escrow officer, making sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be. They got that phone call.
Right.
But it
so
wasn't
everything
the title
lined
company.
up.
Yeah.
Except it wasn't the right people.
And those poor people lost a couple $100,000.
Yeah, and it's happened several times.
It's rampant.
It's very much so. I freak my clients out to this day. It's very scary. It's happening all the time, but definitely something to be on top of, and not taking email instruction, calling the title company right before you wire funds is extremely important.
Yeah. And in going down that same line of verifying information, when we represent buyers, oftentimes the seller, like us, when we represent sellers, all the inspections are taken care of when we represent a seller.
Right.
Oftentimes it's the same for when we're representing a buyer. The seller has taken care of all that. And it's vitally important to verify information like that. One, the reputation of the inspectors on the property itself, and then you have to go through those inspections and make sure that there's not any little thing that we should double check to protect our buyers.
Right.
Because oftentimes things are missed.
Yep.
And oftentimes things are not reported.
Right.
And of course we have to make sure that we are able to protect our buyers in that sense too.
Absolutely.
So it's just about verify.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take us on the road to the seller now and
great.
flip the script here and talk about sewer lateral. Now, we have a full deep dive into this. If you're in an area of Santa Cruz, Morgan Hill.
And soon coming to a neighborhood near you, because it's going to be everywhere.
I'm sure.
The sewer lateral inspections that are being required in some of these communities is basically helping these communities, these cities, townships, and everything else, counties, help pay to redo their infrastructure.
Right.
So they require, in Morgan Hill, for example, they require that a sewer lateral inspection be performed by the seller before the deal closes. Now, if there's any damage in that sewer lateral line going out to the street, then it's the responsibility of the seller, or it can be negotiated that the buyer can help take care of it. But it has to be done. It has to be fixed.
Right.
So,
and that could cause major delays if not known up front.
Right.
So on the sale of a property with one of our clients, we had it up front and got whatever repairs quickly done. We have a fantastic plumber that we work with, James Bailey. Yep. He is awesome.
We have a podcast with him.
Yeah, we have a podcast with him in full detail if you want more information. But the purchase we were making was not prepared. Yeah. So they did not have their completed inspection. The inspector that did it, unfortunately, did not find all the things that the city found. The repairs caused major delays, and the seller, I think, upwards of $50,000 that they were not expecting.
And the person who did that inspection what they were going to do is they were going to patch it. They were going to bypass what the issue was in the ground. They were going to put a pipe above it.
Yep.
And it was only going to cost like $8,000 or some small amount. But we had our guy look at it and say, one, you can't do that.
Right.
And two, it has to be all replaced. And it was $50,000. Now, the seller didn't know because they didn't go forward with the proper sewer lateral inspection. And us as buyer's agents in this one looked at the report, gave it to our guy, James Bailey. He says, no, this is all wrong.
Right.
And this was one that had to go all the way out to the sewer, out to the
the street
manhole.
had to be ripped up.
Right. Yeah. And it was delayed. It was up to 3 weeks, I believe. We were late on that one.
And we're lucky that it was 3 weeks. We had to pretty much beg the city to
But
move
on
quickly.
the other side of that, we had their home sold, and the buyer was trying to move in.
Right,
So
right.
And
So
they
the
had to
working
rent
parts.
back, and we had to extend that. I mean, it's just so many things that were wrong. But again, everyone came out of it. We were able to handle it.
Right.
But these are the kind of things that come up in our situations with people in these sewer laterals and inspections and wire fraud and everything else. And from the seller side, there's not a lot that is like unusual that they have to worry about, except for things like title issues.
Right.
Let's start with, is the property in a trust, or is it not in a trust?
Correct.
And maybe we do a lot of probate and trust sales where the property was not transferred into the trust and someone's passed away. And now we have a lot of work to do to make sure that property can get through either without probate or through the trust system by getting the property put back in on a court order. It just goes on and on. So when people are in that situation where you have a probate or a trust sale or a sale where a relative has passed and you're inheriting property, we have to make sure that paperwork was done correctly going into it.
Right.
We're sitting on one right now in San Francisco that it's been a year that we're trying to get the title issues cleared up that wasn't done properly.
And that's with people with trust.
Right.
Let's speak just for a second to those who have not set up a trust on their house.
Okay. That's a good point. We probably could do a whole show on trust.
And we should.
And we will. We will. Because if you don't have a living trust right now and you own property, you never know what's going to happen in life. You don't know what's going to happen to yourself or whoever is the owners of the house. And the ones, when something happens, a calamity happens and a person passes unexpectedly or even expectedly, and they have no trust on a property, you leave an entire 7 to 8 month process to get that property into the heirs' names and to be able to get it sold, plus probate costs. Probate costs 7% to the attorney. It's just the way it is. You got to pay it.
Right.
But the thing is, it has to go through court, and then sometimes the court has to approve the sale.
Right.
So you, as the owner, you as the person who inherited the property, you have no control because the court will decide if that house sells for that price.
Right.
So it's just really important that if you own property, you should be, even if you don't own property, you should be setting up a living trust for when you expect to own property.
And within that trust podcast that we do, we'll review my dad's trust and just make sure it's appropriately set up that I get the majority.
Yes, I understand, sweetheart. I get this every day.
We'll just check it.
Yeah, just check it. Yeah, talk to your brother. Anyway, but the trust is vital. It's vital. It's vital. It's not super expensive. I mean, you could even go online nowadays. I wouldn't recommend that, but you could go online and do it for a few $100.
Just get something and set up at least. Yeah.
Something that says this is what's going to happen to the property. And then the other thing about a trust too is that when a person passes and there's a trustee left over, the cost basis of that property steps up to what it's worth on the date of death. So, and a lot of times when we have parents and one passes, the house was bought for $26,000 in 1969, and here it is 2024, it's worth $2.5 million. Well, you don't want to have to worry about that gain because with the trust, the property basis steps up.
Right.
And of course, we'll have a legal expert here talking about that. I am not an attorney. I wanted to be one, but I'm not an attorney.
You can still be an attorney. I keep telling you, take the bar.
I'm telling you, I'm getting out, remember?
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
One big thing I really want to talk about too, because I know that this can go in so many different directions, but contractual obligation and negotiation for our sellers, since we're talking about sellers, also with buyers as well. This goes every which way.
Sure it does.
But the story that specifically is a more recent one where our seller accepted an offer, which was non-contingent because we helped push to get the right terms.
Yeah, this is a great story. Not a great story, but it's a story that, the solution was there, but it could get really sticky.
Yeah.
So Nicolette's talking about a buyer who made a non-contingent offer, meaning there's no loan contingency, no appraisal contingency, no property condition contingency. The contract is an as-is contract, and they've agreed to buy the house. They've also agreed to put their deposit in escrow in a certain amount of time. This was one day. Buyer didn't put the deposit in escrow. The buyer actually called personally, which he should have went through his agent and said, we decided we don't want to buy the property.
No.
Well, unfortunately, in a non-contingent offer, you don't have this right of rescission that they think they have.
Right.
As long as our paperwork's done, our transfer disclosures are out, everything's in front of them, they have no way to back out, unfortunately for them. Our advice, and I called their agent, was they need to speak to a real estate attorney because in that situation, the buyer is not liable for what's normally the 3% liquidated damages clause that we have in our contracts, which means that should you default on buyer not wanting to buy, seller not wanting to sell, you can be liable for up to 3% of the property's value if their deposit was in escrow. If your deposit's not in escrow and you don't put it in, you now become liable for the entire damages that a seller would incur. So let's just pretend this house was on the market. We're just going to use fake numbers, $1.6 million, and they didn't put their deposit in. We couldn't sell it for 1.6. We had to sell it for 1.3. That buyer is on the hook for $300,000.
Yeah, I have recently interacted before the recent changes with buyers who have challenged the contingency because they said they've been given advice by realtors that the 3% deposit, if not brought into escrow within the time period, is basically they could walk away from the deal, which is very wrong. And unfortunately, the realtors that are giving that advice should be slapped around.
Yeah. I mean,
it's just not right.
And this is in non-contingent offers. Now, if you're going to have a contingency and you could use your contingency to remove yourself from the contract, that's a whole different story. But in the fast-paced market that we are here in Silicon Valley, and what's happened in the last 7 years probably, non-contingent offers are normal. I think sellers almost expect non-contingent offers now because that's what happens. So, they don't want to take an offer that has the opportunity for it to fall through.
Right.
So, and then buyers, if we could do it, you want to go in non-contingent because you want to be strong. You want to be the best offer on the table. Saying, we're not walking out the door on this deal. Right. And, people just don't understand, though, how important the earnest money deposit is and how vital it is it gets in escrow, because it puts you in a seriously bad position if you chose not to put that deposit in escrow.
So to end that story, though, our seller our seller still was able to, the buyer came back in and closed on that transaction because of the fact that they were going to potentially lose money.
I think they followed the advice that we gave to their agent. Yeah. And the agent, and I want to tell you, that agent was very cooperative. He was extremely cooperative and fully understood the ramifications of what was about to happen. Right. And somehow they must have talked to a real estate attorney who said, you need to put that deposit in escrow because
get that money in.
Yeah. And if they don't have another offer coming in and it's less than what you're paying right now, you're going to pay. Right. So they wound up closing. They got their deposit in. Yeah. They love the house. In fact, I just talked to the agent just 3 days ago because they have mail for our client. Yeah. Nick. And they actually enjoy the house, and they're very, very happy that they stayed in the deal.
So oftentimes, to wrap up, a lot of these things happen. It ends up to be in a good situation because we know how to adjust and to protect our clients.
Yeah, and that's our job. I mean, our job is to facilitate the transaction from start to finish and to make sure that any of these pitfalls, any of these roadblocks, any of these hazards we come across, that we're able to negotiate our way through them, which is what we do. Right. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
We can go down all kinds of stories about hoarders. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how far you want to go into this.
No, I think so. They did vote on next time with crazy dramatic stories from real estate. We've got some good nuggets on that.
Maybe two.
Well, we have to be careful though. We don't want to throw anyone under the bus, and they'll know who they are.
Yeah, but I guess the biggest piece, we're trying to make sure everyone comes away with is that communication, stay informed. Questions are always welcome. It's not, there is no question that's a stupid question. The ones that are not asked are the ones that we worry about the most. Right. And you don't want to ask that question after it's all done. You want to make sure it's done before then. Right. And information is power. I mean, information is power. Yeah. One of my favorite lines is, I don't know, but I'll find out. Right. We'll get the answer to that. So.
Information is power when used.
Ah, that's good. You should write that down.
It's Phil Jones.
Our buddy Phil. Hey, Phil.
Phil Jones. Well, thank you so much. We've discovered and hopefully given you a few nuggets today on how to keep you out of hot water in a transaction. Ultimately, you should be working with us and we'll keep you out of hot water.
That's what we do.
But just a few stories on what we've experienced. Yeah. And next time we'll be going over, it sounds like trust should be a good one.
Well, I think we're going to go into cybersecurity first. I think we're going to use a person who's reputable in that business to start talking about some of the things that people are coming across with. He's basically an expert in that area, and he's going to help all of us understand what to look for.
I love it. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Perfect.
Thanks for watching Wine and Wine Real Estate Uncorked. Cheers to you, and thank you so much.
Share this. Bye.